Welcome back to Talk Tickers. You know the drill. We deep dive into earnings calls to give you the insights you need to make smart investment decisions.
Love it.
So today, we're looking at Brookfield Renewable Partners.
Right.
Their Q3 2024 earnings call.
Okay.
Plus, we've got some recent stock info to really see what's powering their success and what it all means for investors like you.
This is a good one.
Yeah, and this is a wild ride. They're posting record profits. They're making some really savvy asset sales.
Oh, yeah.
And they're even dipping their toes into offshore wind.
It's fascinating to me how Brookfield is not only navigating, but thriving in this kind of paradoxical market where it's good to buy and sell assets. It's advantageous to do both. And their recent moves are a masterclass in how to do it.
Absolutely. They just smashed their FFO targets.
Yeah.
And for those following along at home, that's funds from operations.
Right.
It's essentially the cash flow generated by a company's operations.
Yeah.
So record FFO numbers this quarter,
Yeah.
exceeding all analyst expectations. It really does seem like they've cracked the code on renewable energy investing.
Yeah. They've got their secret weapon. It's this concept they call the bifurcation of the market, which is just a fancy way of saying there's two distinct trends happening. On the one hand, you've got high-quality, low-risk assets being snapped up at premium prices. But on the other, you see larger companies with big capital. Needs are struggling.
Interesting.
So Brookfield is taking advantage of this. They're selling their mature assets for a big profit, and then they're turning around and snatching up these promising businesses at a discount.
So everyone else is trying to figure out checkers, and they're playing 4D chess.
Exactly. And the numbers speak for themselves. $2.3 billion
Whoa.
from asset sales this year, with returns of 2.5 times their initial investment.
Okay, hold on. We need to unpack that. What does a 2.5x return actually look like?
Okay,
It's paint us a picture.
Let's look at the sale of Saeta in the Iberian region. They tripled their investment in just 6 years. And then there's their UK hydro project, First Hydro, which yielded a 3.5x return after they extended the facility's lifespan.
It's like they're the Marie Kondo of renewable energy assets, just optimizing everything for max value.
They are demonstrating textbook value creation. But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
They're not just sitting on this mountain of cash. They're reinvesting aggressively into new growth areas, including their first foray into offshore wind.
That's a big move. Offshore wind is still a relatively new market.
It is.
What's behind this strategic shift?
It's about anticipating future demand. They see massive potential in offshore wind. And by partnering with a company like Ørsted, they're securing their position in a burgeoning market.
So they're planting seeds.
They are.
For future profits. Essentially, they're betting big on the future of clean energy.
Precisely. They're predicting a clean energy boom, and they want to be at the forefront. And they cite a few key drivers for this boom: the insatiable hunger for energy, from data centers and AI, the growing corporate push for renewable sources, and the recent U.S. election, which they believe will lead to pro-growth policies, and a surge in power demands.
Speaking of the election, that's something I wanted to touch on. There's been a lot of chatter in the market about how the election results might impact the renewable energy sector, particularly in the U.S.
Right.
Some folks are nervous. But Brookfield seems remarkably unfazed.
They do, don't they?
What makes them so confident? A lot of investors are wondering that.
Well, they have a few key points. First, they highlight the bipartisan support for clean energy initiatives.
Okay.
Second, their core focus is on the most cost-effective technologies, mainly onshore wind and solar, which remain competitive, even without government subsidies. Third, they can pass on any potential cost increases to their customers, because demand is so high.
Makes sense.
And finally, they believe the new administration will implement policies that stimulate economic growth, and as a result, drive even higher demand for power.
It's a bold stance. But considering their track record, it's hard to dismiss their optimism.
Yeah.
They've consistently been ahead of the curve. In this space,
I agree.
their early investments in technologies like onshore wind and solar are paying off now as demand explodes, and they're already anticipating the next wave with their move into offshore wind. Speaking of anticipating the next wave, did they make a pretty significant acquisition recently? Something that raised a few eyebrows?
You're talking about Westinghouse, right? They're moving to nuclear.
Exactly. It seemed a little unexpected.
On the surface, yes. But if you dig deeper, it aligns with their strategy of meeting the demand for clean, reliable power. Think about it. These tech giants need power 147 And Brookfield is willing to explore any technology that can deliver that, whether it's wind, solar, or even nuclear.
They even mentioned on the call that they're already seeing major tech companies
I see.
signing agreements to either restart existing nuclear facilities or support the development of new ones.
Right. For Brookfield, this signals just how big the demand will be for clean electricity in the coming years. And with Westinghouse, they've expanded their portfolio to offer a full spectrum of clean energy solutions.
So they're essentially becoming a one-stop shop for all things clean energy.
That's a great way to put it. And their massive 200,000 megawatt renewable power project development pipeline, with 90% strategically located in the top 10 data center markets globally, just solidifies their dominant position. It's clear they're playing the long game, and they're playing it masterfully.
But let's be realistic for a second.
Okay.
Is this all too good to be true? Are there any risks or red flags that investors should be aware of?
Well, every investment has some risk, but Brookfield has a long track record of not only managing risk, but actually delivering impressive returns. Their approach is disciplined. It's focused on creating value over the long term, rather than chasing quick profits.
So they're not just trend chasers, they're strategic visionaries.
Exactly. And their size gives them an advantage. They have the resources, the expertise, and the financial muscle to navigate volatile markets.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But what about the competition? The clean energy sector
Yeah.
is getting crowded.
Of course, there's always competition, but Brookfield has a few key differentiators. First, their global reach and diverse portfolio gives them an edge. They're not overly reliant on any single market or technology.
Okay.
Second, their operational expertise is top-notch. They have a proven ability to acquire assets, optimize them, and generate strong returns. And third, their access to capital is unparalleled. They have the financial firepower to make big bets and outmaneuver their rivals.
So they've built like a fortress around their business.
Well, I wouldn't say impenetrable, but it's certainly formidable. They're a force to be reckoned with, and their competitors know it.
All right, so we've discussed Brookfield's performance, their strategic positioning, and we've addressed some concerns. But the real question is, what does all this mean for our listeners, the everyday investors?
That's the million-dollar question. And while I can't offer financial advice, I can say that based on their track record, their strategies, and the market conditions, Brookfield Renewable Partners seems to be a compelling investment opportunity. Of course, you should do your own research. Consider your goals and your risk tolerance, and maybe talk to a financial advisor.
Absolutely. This is not financial advice. We're just two podcast hosts sharing our analysis. But it's clear that Brookfield is a company worth watching.
Without a doubt. They're not just leading the charge in clean energy. They're shaping the future of how we power our world.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground. From record profits and strategic acquisitions to offshore wind and nuclear power. But before we wrap up, I always love your "this is not financial advice" segment.
Oh, yeah.
Given Brookfield's outlook and their acquisitions, what's one outlandish yet plausible trade idea that's got you thinking?
All right, let's have some fun. Remember, this is purely hypothetical and for entertainment purposes only.
We're all ears.
Okay, so we know Brookfield has a knack for identifying undervalued assets and turning them into profit machines. What if they set their sights on a struggling traditional energy company, say one that's heavily invested in fossil fuels?
Now that's an interesting thought. Are you suggesting a hostile takeover?
Not necessarily hostile, but a strategic acquisition. Brookfield could use their expertise to transform this fossil fuel dinosaur into a clean energy powerhouse.
It's a bold move, but I could see it working. They could spin off the polluting assets, pour investments into renewables, and create new revenue streams.
Exactly. And they could potentially even get governments on board to support this transition, making the deal even sweeter. Imagine the headlines. Brookfield turns oil giant green.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a PR win and a massive step forward for the environment.
I love that idea. It's ambitious, but it would be a game changer.
It would. And that's what Brookfield is all about. Disrupting the status quo.
Yeah.
And driving innovation. They're not afraid to make bold moves. And that's what makes them so exciting to watch.
Well said. So to wrap up our deep dive into Brookfield Renewable Partners, it's been a fascinating look into clean energy, high finance, and bold strategies. What are your final thoughts?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Brookfield is a prime example of how doing good can also be good business.
Mm-hmm.
They're proving that sustainable investing can be both profitable and impactful.
Absolutely. And they seem to be just getting started. Who knows what they'll come up with next?
That's what makes them so compelling. They're constantly evolving, adapting, and always a few steps ahead.
Well, folks, that concludes our deep dive to Brookfield Renewable Partners. We hope you found this episode insightful and maybe even a little inspiring.
And remember, the future of energy is clean, and companies like Brookfield are leading the charge.
So as you go about your day, think about how you can be a part of this transition to a more sustainable world, whether it's through your investments, supporting eco-conscious companies, or simply reducing your carbon footprint.
Every action makes a difference, big or small.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and as always, keep it locked on Talk Tickers.